G'day guys, welcome to the Origin K9 podcast, where our mission is to enhance the full life cycle of working canines and handlers. The podcast is now available on YouTube and all major podcast platforms. If you're looking for our Australian-made tactical canine equipment, go to origink9.com. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the Origin K9 podcast. Today I've got another international guest. We've got Mike Nezbeth, owner of Grassroots K9, pretty well-known decoy amongst other things. So welcome to the show, my man.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It's an honor. Again, thank you for requesting. Every time I get requested to do podcasts or even seminars, I'm kind of like, oh wow, you want to talk to me? Well, I don't, So hopefully we make it worth the viewers' time.
Yeah, no, it definitely will be 100%. And I think, because we did the collaborator post and then the questions or whatever. I knew there was a lot of people that had interest in this podcast. Like a bunch of my mates, a couple of guys we went over to the States with in that last trip. They were super keen, bro. So it'll definitely be worth it, man. I promise, man. Everyone that was commenting and whatnot, they'll be happy.
Yeah, I tried not to look at the questions, so that way I could just give a more organic answer when the time comes. So if we got some questions there, that'll be good.
That's good. Yeah, because Wolfmo Hound said send pic and DM to some accounts though. We'll answer it. The first question I got was some piece of shit spam one. I was like, fuck off.
Yeah, I always get those, and then I just thank them for the engagement and comment back and keep it moving.
Yeah, I did the same. I'll comment on it because I think it gives it more algorithm. Anyway,
Yeah, exactly.
so dude, I don't know if you've listened to this potty before, but it's like the whole thing's about you. So like, I want to go through your childhood. Obviously, you've done like the psychology and some sociology stuff as well. Get into the grassroots canine stuff, and then hit some user questions at the end, bro. So, mate,
Yeah.
tell me about growing up, bro. What was it like? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in a little city kind of just outside of Toronto. City's called Brampton. I say little city, but it's probably close population, probably 800,000. So yeah, I grew up. It was city life. Pretty regular childhood. I have really good parents. I have two younger brothers. Dogs were kind of. I remember being young and my grandma having a dog. And my cousins having dogs, and my dad not being the biggest fan of dogs, so like hounding him as a kid, like, hey, I really want a dog, I really want a dog. And then finally, after years of work, my mom kind of surprised me and my brother. I'm in Brada. She's like, oh, we're gonna go see your family, your aunt from England or something. So we go drive over to a place, and this lady comes and greets us, and we walk into the backyard, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. We get in the backyard and the lady starts yelling, puppies, puppies, and a litter of Springer Spaniels ran out. And I was just like, ecstatic, a kid, the first time you're getting a puppy. I still, we go through the whole process, end up picking our puppy out of the litter. We get back in the car and we're heading home, and I go to my mom like, so how was that lady my aunt again? Like it didn't come together that she was messing with me, but yeah. So I always had like a big interest in dogs, and that was my kind of event. One of the events that happened at really young, and I just remember playing with, like, being in way over my head. It was a hunting line Springer Spaniel, so she was full of go. Dog's name was Jessie. She bit me probably more than any of the working dogs that I deal with nowadays. All in good fun, but I just remember being very impressed with her, and left a big impact on me.
Yeah. How old were you when you got this dog?
Oh man, I was probably, don't quote me, man. I've got memory issues, but I want to say that I was around probably 12 years old, maybe not super young. Um, but outside of that, I always had. So my grandparents had a cottage that we would go up to in the country. It's like every weekend we would go up there, and they had dogs. So I remember just going up there. Some of my best childhood memories are at that cottage. Going fishing and just having the dog with me. Not knowing anything about dog training, but just the dog being with me while I was fishing, or we're going in the boat, or we're going on a hike in the woods. So that's yeah.
Is that life in Canada? Is that like it's pretty outdoorsy kind of place because of the weather and the terrain and is that what it's like?
It can be. So it was unique for me. Like, that's why I'm like very blessed with the childhood that I had, because I grew up in the city. So if you grow up in the city, it's not so outdoorsy per se. It's like big city life. But we always, like, my grandparents had this cottage, and we would always every weekend get like a getaway, like plug out. I'm sure it was good for their mental health as well. But as a kid, you don't notice what you have until it's way beyond, like, behind you. So like all my friends, they would spend their weekends in the city just doing regular, playing outside or whatever you may be doing. But like going out into the bush wasn't a very common thing for the people in my neighborhood.
Yeah, okay. And so you had Jesse going around with you everywhere. Was that like,
Yeah.
were you doing any training or you just had this working line dog and then just getting
Yeah.
smashed
No.
all the time?
Yeah, no training at all. I didn't even know that dog training was a thing. So maybe like the regular, like, sit and you get a cookie, or like paw, but nothing outside of that. I used to. She loved swimming and loved retrieving. Obviously now she's a she's a Springer Spaniel, so it makes sense. But I remember playing a game. I used to take rocks down by the river, and I would throw. It was all rocks along the river, and I would throw like a specific rock into the water, and she would go into the water and dive under the water and bring back the rock that I threw her, like that specific rock. So I remember being really impressed and thought that it was a trick that I taught her, just like how she's figuring out of all the rocks on the bottom of this river, that's the one that you threw. So no formal training, just fun with your dog.
Yeah. Did that influence any of the way that you interact with dogs now, or is that just it was just your first dog and it was just yeah.
Yeah, it definitely did. So as I got into training, at a much older age, I moved far away from how I would interact with Jesse. I was more rigid and, like, very, a sit is a sit and a down is a down, and almost, when I was very new to it, like robotic expectations of the animal. And then as time has passed, a little bit of the Dunning-Kruger effect, I believe, I started to really start seeing the value of enjoying the dog. Not just for you, but also for the dog, and also for the dog's end performance in what they're doing. So yeah, I definitely think she's had a lasting impression on how I train dogs today.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, because from what I understand of your style, like some people I've spoken to, you've got like you said, you're all about that engagement and the interaction, but you've got this sort of structured way that you like to train. It's very sort of sciencey based, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
But you still there?
Sorry, sorry, I just broke up a bit. I'm in the country now. Surprisingly, I moved out of the city and I'm in the country, and we don't have the best internet service. So we got everyone off the Wi-Fi so we can hear you as clear as possible. But you broke up a little bit there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's sorry, man. I think I've got a bloody message or something. I'm gonna put my phone on the do not disturb mode. Where is the damn thing? Do not disturb. Because I got like a text message and I'm like, oh my God, beat it, bro. Do not disturb. There you go. That's a nice visual for the YouTube watchers. Um, so how old was Jessie when she passed away?
So I moved down to the States. She was probably close to 10 years old when she passed away. So I was in my early 20s, but I moved down to America for school. So I wasn't, by the time I was, she passed away when I was gone.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Was that something that had a big impact on you, or you were sort of like in your twenties, you're doing other things?
Yeah, at the time it didn't have a huge, like, of course, like when I got the news, I was like all bummed out. But
Yeah.
in my early 20s, out of sight, out of mind kind of kind of feeling. It didn't have a super big impact on like long term in that moment for me.
Yeah, okay. And why'd you move to the States from Canada?
So originally, believe it or not, I played basketball. So I went down to Florida for my last year of high school to like a prep school, a private school down there. That was a pretty pretty big into the athletics. Um, then I got a scholarship to a Division II school in Iowa from there. And then I injured my ankle, kind of blew out my ankle when I was in Iowa. So that ended my NBA dreams. Not that I was good enough to ever make it there, but you couldn't have told me anything different. And then yeah, so that's how I ended up in the States. I went back to another school in Florida and finished up my university down there.
Yeah, okay. Because right, where are you right now? Are you East Coast? I thought you were are you on the West Coast now?
No, I'm on the East Coast. I'm about an hour and a half north of Toronto. So I'm on the East Coast. I'm back in Canada now.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, because I thought you were still based, because you were based on the West Coast for a little while, weren't you?
No, no, we've always been on the East Coast. We have a few different locations for the company, but actually they're kind of all, or they all are on the East Coast. So like from all the way from Toronto down to Florida, we have locations. So
Oh,
they're
where
all
the
East
fuck am I
Coast.
getting West Coast from? I don't know.
Maybe just from travel. I've been out. I do seminars out west and stuff. So
Yeah, okay. So after you've moved to the States, done high school, basketball career shoot itself, did you go straight into your psychology, sociology stuff, or what was the deal there in your 20s?
yeah, so when basketball, the NBA dreams were gone for me, I was like, hey, like what can I do? You know, I don't most people they tell every like school athlete have a plan B, but I never had a plan B and I should have because I wasn't that good at basketball to begin with. Um so you know, I've spent some time, spent the summer, and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm really interested in psychology. You know, I was kind of going through some things in life at that time, and I was like, hey, just maybe it'll be useful to get some more information. So I kind of dove into the psychology field that way, and the longer that I was there and doing my schooling, I was like, hey, you know what? I think I can do counseling. That sounds like a really good job for me. So I've worked pretty hard there. Got the, you know, got a few degrees, and then went into the workforce. The counseling job also didn't last that long for me either. But
So just could we just I want to dial back to what you said before.
Mhm.
You said you were going through some stuff. What was the impetus for you to look into psychology? What was going on in your life at that time?
Yeah, so it was actually I was given a diagnosis of I was at the time it was they were calling it Asperger's. They don't call it that anymore, but I honestly had no idea what that even was. I was so far removed from any of that information. So it was kind of like intimidating and scary to me, you know, like what does that mean? Is that, am I going to be, but just ignorant responses, you know, like, does that mean I'm going to be drooling on myself? Is that like, what's coming from here? Is it, I had no idea.
Yeah,
So it kind of like pushed me to want to have my own information. And, you know, you talk to doctors or mental health experts in the field, and maybe it's my paranoia, but I was like, well, are they just telling me what I want to hear and not what the actual information is, you know? So it was kind of my own experience kind of pushed me into that field. And yeah, that's the basis of it. I also went with that, with the diagnosis. I kind of went into like a little dark place for a little while, you know, just because of not knowing what it even is.
yeah. Could you just could you describe what Asperger's is? Because I know that like people understand what the sort of what the being on the spectrum, so to speak, means, but what is Asperger's specifically?
Yeah, I think that's that's the hard part is it's very hard to get a hard definition on it, you know, and that's where I was running into a lot of the issues, but like personal issues and understanding of it. It's uh, pretty much from again my not so great understanding is limited social skills at times, and it presents differently in different people as well. So it can also be a challenge. Limited social interaction skills, the tendency to have like fixations on particular things, and almost a little bit obsessive about particular things. Um, Sometimes it presents as like narcissistic type behaviors, not because genuine narcissistic people, but not picking up on social skills can also make people not realize that they're not even being empathetic to to things, if that makes any sense. So at the time, again, like the definition is so loosely fitting for what it is. I had no idea. So when they're trying to tell me this, also it can also present a lot of times like ADHD or attention deficit disorders. Um, so all of those things, I was very unfamiliar with at the time. You know, but then like hindsight, like I look back and I say, oh well, yeah, they're it. In my opinion, I think it can work sometimes as like a superpower. You know, like I fixate on dogs, I fixate on animal behavior, and I think just being able to um, utilize you know, all of us have strengths and weaknesses, and just leaning into what your strengths are is kind of how I've moved forward, and I don't I don't like use it as a part of my identity, if that makes any sense, or
Yeah.
it's just kind of like there, and then things like you know, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, it's hard because of how it presents differently in each person, um, and it's a spectrum, just like, you know, it's on the autism spectrum, so um, people can deal with it in different ways.
Yeah, that's like that's fascinating you telling me that and the way you talk about it because, well, probably for two main reasons. The first one is like you don't give me any of those vibes at all. Like you're quite a personable guy. Like we're just having a normal conversation. It doesn't seem like you're impeded in any way, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Um, and the second one is myself and a bunch of like my close mates. We all suspect we've each got ADHD, never been diagnosed anything, and we always joke and say we've probably got a bit of autism in there as well. But that was
Yeah.
interesting. The way you described it was similar ADHD fixation and stuff. So, I mean, personally, I'm looking for an ADHD diagnosis at the end of this year, purely out of curiosity. And much like
Yeah.
yourself, I don't want to use it and be like, oh, sorry, can't do that, ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
Exactly.
yeah, it's more just for knowing myself. So is that kind of the way you've used it? Just you know yourself, and
Exactly.
it's almost like a pulling a lever sort of thing. You're like, oh, I may not be that good at this, so I'll turn this off. But if I'm obsessive, it's going to be something that's important and has a like an
Exactly.
impact for you.
Exactly. And then, you know, like also being aware, you know, like again, I'm blessed. I get to travel and do so many of these seminars, but the other thing that comes along with it is like social. I look at it like a social battery, you know, like there's like so much. I want to make sure when I'm doing the seminars that I give as much as I can give. Like I know everyone, you know, paid their hard-earned money. They come out, they're taking time out of their life. I want to make sure that I give, but there are also elements where it's like, okay, I need to unplug. Like I need to. We gave everything. I need to unplug, and um, sometimes it can. In those, mostly people are understanding regardless. But sometimes it can seem like a little bit of antisocial behavior, you know. But it's not that I'm being antisocial. I just need to let me take a break and go back to my hotel room for a little bit and reset or whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's interesting, man.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
actually
just
think I think that those kind of like uh, atypical, you know, thought processes or whatever diagnosis or whatever you want to call it, I think it's actually pretty common in the dog world. I think a lot of dog people um, are like that, and maybe a lot of them probably undiagnosed in certain ways because it takes a certain type of um, obsession to become really good and dive deep into this world.
Yeah. Especially the decoy stuff, man. Like it's such a niche skill, so easy to fuck up a dog sort of thing. So I
Yeah.
imagine like even like I only had a cursory look at Carlos when he was at ATK9, but like man, guys just catching dog after dog after dog after dog. Like you have to be
Yeah.
dedicated and obsessed to do that stuff, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, dude, that
Yeah,
is
for
so
sure.
interesting, man. I'm seeing so many parallels here between myself and some friends, and that's why I'm so fascinated by things like that because I don't know, man. The human experience for me is just so interesting. So thank you for
It
sharing
really
that
is,
too,
man.
man. I
Oh, no
appreciate it,
problem,
bro.
man. No problem.
Yeah. So, bro, talk me through the doing your psychology stuff. Where do you think you were going to go with that?
Yeah, so as I got into it again, just kind of for selfish needs to try and figure out some more information, and then as I was doing that, I really got into it, and I was like, hey, maybe I can, I wanted to potentially do something that was going to help people, and I was like, hey, I really want to get into this counseling. So I finished school. Sorry, during that time I met my wife, and then I finish school and I get a job doing counseling. It's like was at basically like a therapy center, and this it was for dually diagnosed adults. So they would have like autism and schizophrenia. So like it would be some and the whole goal for or on paper the goal for the counseling and therapy that I was doing was to help integrate them back into society. So I was like, oh man, like it sounds like the perfect job. Like I really wanted to do this, and then I worked there for a while, and I realized that may be the goal on paper, but the goal um, for the company that I work for doesn't necessarily reflect that written down mission statement that's on the paper. Um, so I was having some kind of personal conflicts in that, like, hey, it's they wanted us to do the same stuff with them every day and like keep them entertained, but not trying to, in my opinion, and they've been doing it for longer than me, but in my opinion, maybe not helping uh, develop actual life skills for them. And whenever I would like, hey, maybe we should try and do this, I would get like the whack-a-mole treatment, like, back to your office, back to your office. So that was, you know, sitting heavily on me. And during this time, I should mention is that I started kind of as a hobby becoming substantially more interested in dog behavior. Um, so I had another pet at the time. Um, his name was Zeus. Actually, two, Zeus and Lola. And one of them, Zeus, was like very dog aggressive. He was a Florida pit bull. That was, and so I was getting really kind of interested in dog behavior while I'm doing this. So I was kind of doing dog stuff with my own dogs as a hobby to begin with. Um, then I started getting together with a French ring club, and people that were interested in or working in French ring, and still just as a hobby, not putting in my head that people make like a living off of this. Um, then I ended up now at my job, basically coming home one day to my I'm telling my wife like, hey, I can't do this anymore. It's not for me. I can't do it. It's pretty depressing and like soul sucking for me. And she's like, so what are you gonna do? And I said like, I'm gonna train dogs, literally like that. And she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, I know. But she was supportive of me, even though had no understanding, and I didn't have any understanding of what my plan was at that point. Um, I didn't even still at that point didn't really know that people could make a living training dogs, let alone like doing working dog stuff. So um, I went around from trainer to trainer, like jumped on Google and hey, can you help me learn? I want to know how to train dogs. I want to know how to train dogs, and It was either no that they would say, or they just wouldn't say anything to me at all. So, I found someone, I just showed up to a kennel in Florida and I found someone that didn't say no, but they also didn't say yes. Um, and then so I just showed up every day for like a month. And then finally the owner of this, it was a big, like multi-million dollar business, walked in one day because he wasn't there every day. And he's like, "You're still here?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, I guess we'll give you a job." Like, so I started kind of, that's how I got into actual dog training, was in that.
So what were you doing when you rocked up every day? You like just literally just sitting there, or were you like, hey, I'll give you a hand cleaning up the shit and spraying the kennels or whatever?
Yeah, it's like that fixation that I talked about. Like I wasn't allowed to go do any of that because I wasn't an employee there. So I would, walk into the lobby and kind of just be the weirdo that was standing in the lobby and talking to them about dogs, or watching. They had one trainer on staff at the time, so watching her train the dogs, and kind of annoying and asking her questions and stuff. And then yeah, literally he's like, "Hey, your resume is bigger than what this job." It was a minimum wage job in Florida, and I was like, "Bro, I don't care. Like, I'll do this for free. The joke is on you." So like, yeah, that's kind of how that's how it showed up. It worked out, and then they didn't hire me as a dog trainer. They hired me obviously as a kennel tech because I barely knew which end of the dog you feed. So they hired me as a kennel tech. So I would work 8-hour shifts as a kennel tech, and then I would be off. And when I would get off, I would get to hang out with the trainer. So I would hang out with the trainer for like another probably 3 to 4 hours each shift. And I would go home, and it would put me there. I would go home, drop some my stuff off, and then I could head to the French Ring Club. That was like, so it gave me like an hour break between my shift and French Ring Club, and I would just go there and kind of rinse and repeat over and over again.
So were you taking your dogs to the French Ring Club, or you just rocked up?
No, no, I didn't have any bitey dogs, so I was just walking up there, and luckily it worked out that the guys at the French Ring Club were all older guys, so they didn't want to put the suit on. So like how it usually goes, they're like, "Well, you're young, so put this." So I was like, happily, too stupid to know the danger, and just put the suit on, and so they would just beat me up every day, and I just kept showing up. So
Can you explain what French Ring is? Because I know there's probably a lot of misconceptions about it, and I'm not overly
yeah,
familiar myself at all. I've seen
yeah.
it a
So
couple of times, but
yeah, so it was the funny part is that it was a French ring club, but I was never a French ring decoy. Like I never went through decoy certifications. I was just happy with training at the club. So what French ring is a dog sport. Similar, the most popular dog sport is probably Schutzhund or IGP, IPO. What French ring is just another dog sport. Kind of in the same vein, kind of not. It's a fully suited dog sport, and it's actually a pretty fun decoy sport because a lot of times it's like decoy versus dog, not so much routine. So the decoy's job, a lot of the time, they have an exercise that's called the esquive, and the decoy's job is to try and make the dog miss them when the dog is coming downfield to bite them. Um, so like my introduction to any type of bite sports or working biting dog stuff was French ring, and I think it was like perfect because one, it's really fun as a decoy, and two, that French ring dogs usually are smaller Malinois that are very fast. So if I was catching like really fast dogs, and they're usually leg targeting dogs, um, I was catching really fast dogs biting legs. So by the time we went to like, I got to work with, some of the police departments, and the dogs were biting upper body. It was so much easier for me to catch a upper body dog because I have so much more movement up here versus like if I put my weight wrong when they're biting my leg, it could be a bad day for me as a decoy and for the dog. So it really helped me, in my opinion, um, be able to catch those dogs.
yeah. So you're like a fully qualified psychologist at this stage, right?
Yep, yep.
And at what point did you sort of blend the two worlds where you were like, start looking into like dog psychology, behavioral science, that type of stuff, and like meshing it with what you were doing with the decoy work and the French ring?
Yeah, so it actually wasn't right away. Like to me, they were still two very separate things. So a lot of the things that I was seeing um, at the club at the time were things that like nowadays I would like cringe watching, you know. But like if I don't even know what I'm watching, and I was like, hey, these guys know best. Uh, it came to a point where I was seeing some things at the club, and I was like, well, there has to be a better way, or like an easier way, not necessarily better way, but like an easier way to teach these things. And I was all about like information overload, so I never I was never like in dog training. There's like tribes of school of thought, you know, like we have like the purely positives, or you have even within those you know, balance, there's different types and I was never like that, like I'm going to lock into like one tribe and this is the way. I was always about like I want as much info as possible. So I remember like a specific day I went to the French ring club, and I actually got a puppy, a Malinois puppy at this time. And I went to the French ring club, and all the guys were making fun of me because I was using a clicker, because they were very like kind of old school guys, and they were making fun of me. But then, you know, fast forward, you know, my young puppy was like enthusiastically performing behaviors where their dogs would perform the behavior because they had to perform the behavior. If that makes any sense, like they weren't like so happy about doing it, they would just do it. So like seeing those small little things kind of pushed me further, and trying to find ways of teaching things, and ways of getting dogs to learn that coincided with what my experience what I learned through my psychology stuff.
Yeah. And what about the fear aspect? I mean, when I used to decoy, honestly, it was nothing special, right? I'm not a decoy's asshole. But like I always had a little bit of fear in me, which I thought was kind of healthy, and I wasn't overly concerned about it. Is that something you get over pretty quickly, catching dog after dog after dog doing French ring?
Yeah, I think so. For me, yeah, for sure. Like the first time I was definitely like there was fear in me. There was a healthy fear. Um, but I think part of the thing that helped me battle that is that I was the only person that was of age to even put a bite suit on. So like I didn't have the luxury of like time down in between to like work myself up about, oh crap, this next dog's coming up and this one's going to be really bad and he bites really hard and I hope I do the right thing, because it was like dog on deck, next dog on deck, next dog on deck. So I didn't have that anticipation making it worse. So I think that helped me. And also it's when you're really tired, it's hard to be scared. You know, like I was extremely exhausted, so you know it was hard to be scared. I'm working dogs in the Florida sun. Um, but I still think to this day, like I work dogs, and I think it's right to have, um, you know, a healthy level of fear. Um, I think something that gets overlooked a lot in decoying nowadays is, you know, I think like across the board, decoying is really good. Like people have gotten substantially better. I think something that is like a little missing component is the emotional state of the decoy. Like that has a really big impact on the dog. So being able to control your emotions, and not just, there's a difference between, you know, going through the motions, like marking the behaviors and going through the motions, or actually feeling the emotions in those moments. You know, like when I look at a dog and I want the dog to understand what it's like to deal with an adversary. I don't just be like, I'm going to pretend to be angry at you. Like I'm actually angry at the dog. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think
Uh,
that's probably a layer of not complexity, but like a layer that a lot of people wouldn't think of and probably wouldn't be able to sink into that easily, I guess.
yeah, and I think people can do it. I think where it gets hard is that sometimes when you're dealing with them and you're teaching them that and you're showing them that emotional state of like, I'm actually angry at you, you have to, on the drop of a dime, be able to then go to, I'm actually really afraid of you and you're really strong, right? Sometimes I think people are okay, like especially type A personalities, they're very good at the look, I'm angry, I'm a big bad wolf, I'm angry with you, but they're not so good at I'm the hurt little bunny rabbit a second later, right? So that vulnerability, and the being able to kind of transition between different emotional states, I think pays dividends to the dogs. They get to see like a full spectrum of emotion, not just, okay, put the suit on and mark the behavior and do it safe. All those things are very important. But I think then it gets to a point where it's okay, the dogs understand that, and like, we can push them beyond that, but it becomes emotional responses. What's the dog do with an emotional response?
Yeah. So you're almost like playing a character, so to speak,
Yeah.
like acting, like getting into the character of the decoy when you're doing that work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really really good. And but some of the challenging parts about it is that you have to be over. Me and Carlos, we taught we like, again, we're lucky we get to teach like decoying stuff, and we could spend a whole week doing like a PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint on information overload about decoying, and then putting the dog on someone. It's like all that information, if it's the first time they ever been bit, leaves their head, right? Like it's like it's a primal response. It's not natural for humans to be letting an animal bite them, regardless if it's a domesticated dog. So, that first initial like fear dump is like, oh my God, I forgot everything that you've ever said to me. We call it, it's like Ricky Bobby, where they're like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we try and get that out of the way, and like, let's get as many reps in as we can with the dog biting on you and you being able to just work. You have this one job. All you're going to do is this one thing when the dog does this, and really work them through it. And then after we get over that hump, then it's like, okay, now you can listen finally. Now here's the information. That makes sense?
Yeah, 100%, man. And did you sort of develop that method with the help of the psychology education, or that's just something you've sort of learned over time?
Yeah, I think it's hard to separate them both. Like I think it plays both. I just think like a natural fear response, is to freeze for most animals, to either fight, flight, or freeze. And when we're doing that, freeze is what happens. So I think like getting that out of the system, let's get that out of the way. Some people it takes 2 reps to at least get it a little bit out of the way. Some people it takes 5, 10 reps. So like just getting them familiarized with what that is and being able to kind of talk to us through it. That's another thing that we try to use is like, while you're working the dog, I want to be able to ask you questions that you're capable of answering, but you need to think about. So I'd be like, hey, what's 5 plus 3? Like, I don't care actually about what's happening with the dog, but is your mind ready to mentally process very simple things? How do you spell your last name? Can you spell it backwards? Like those kind of things. I think in the long run, get the decoy in a better mental space where they're capable of. I'm sure it's probably similar to some of the training that you've had to go, like, maybe not necessarily with dogs, but in those moments, being able to keep your composure and still think about things that need to happen and be able to communicate, with your teammates or whatever it may be. I think it's very similar to what my expectations are of a good decoy. They're the trainer in that moment.
Yeah, yeah, that is exactly, man. That's like it's like a stress inoculation, right? And
Absolutely.
can you move from that what's the word I'm after? Like that tunnel vision, visual audio auditory exclusion from macro movements to micro movements.
Absolutely.
I like that, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in that time, you said you'd started working with some law enforcement people. You started getting a bit of exposure to, different types of bites. Can you talk me through what was that like in the early days working with the cops?
Yeah. So where I would go to the French Ring Club, um, there was a couple of guys that would compete in French Ring, not with their patrol dogs. They were canine handlers, but with their personal dogs, and then they also had canine, like police dogs. So they would bring, sometimes at that same field that we're training at, uh, a few canine police teams would show up, and I would see them working stuff while I'm over here working with the French Ring dogs. And maybe it's the grass is greener on the other side or whatever it may be, but I was like, oh, that looks really fun over there. Story of my life. I always like push on to something else. So I was like, oh, that looks really fun over there. So, typical fashion, I kind of annoyed them enough that And like it wasn't too hard because it wasn't like a big lineup of people waiting to be bit by the dogs, if that makes any sense. So I went over and they let me start working with their dogs, and then I started to get exposure to that. They would invite me to do things with them. Outside of just the training field, I would get to like go do building searches or different things that I didn't even realize were, I'm so new to it. I don't even know what the profiles in police dogs mean. I don't know that. I know that they find stuff and they bite if a bad guy runs away. That's all. That's the only thing I knew. So really getting exposure to that side of it was like, whoa, like new shiny cool things that are also different. Like the one issue that I was not issue, but everything has their strengths and weaknesses. So then I would look at like sports or French ring specifically at the time and say like, hey, it's very structured and I really like that, but it's the same thing over and over again. There's not
Yeah.
there's variability, but there's not as much variability as like a patrol dog. That we can show them new pictures and we want to show them novel experiences and we want to kind of take them to the place where we're challenging the dog. So that was really attractive to me as well. And I was like, oh wow, like I really like this. So I kind of dove into that over there. I met actually my mentor at the time. That was at that kennel that I was working at. She was raising police dogs. She started raising police dogs. So you got the opportunity through her to go and deal with these different agencies and see what the process of or her process of raising a puppy to a police dog was. And I was just like flabbergasted, and really impressed and like, oh wow, like this is amazing. Somehow, some way, I want to get involved with doing this. And then I got a puppy and was able to raise it up and sell it as a police dog under tutelage from much better trainers than I was.
Oh, so shit. That Malinois puppy you said you took the French ring. Was that the dog that you raised and sold? That was the first dog you'd ever done.
Yeah, that was the first one. And then I liked that puppy. So it was like to people that don't understand it. And I was one of those, like, I was like, I sold the puppy and I was like heartbroken, like, oh no, like I liked that puppy so much. I didn't. So I went back to the breeder and the breeder's like, no, we're not repeating the litter anymore. But the mom is for sale. And I said, I'll take her. I didn't even see the mom or anything at this point. And fast forward, that dog that's on the Grassroots K9 logo is Dakota, is the mom to that puppy that I bought. So she passed away 2 years ago now, but she's
Jeez.
yeah. So that's kind of how it went.
Yeah. Mate, that's a hectic story, dude. Did you ever think about going into the cops, or you were just happy doing the decoy work, helping these dudes out?
Yeah, I did think about it before, but I didn't think that like I also understand that like being a canine handler is a small part of being a police officer. Like you're a police officer first, and then you're a canine handler secondarily. And I only really have interest in the dog part of it. So I'm like, it wouldn't really be fair. I don't think that it would be right. It wouldn't be a good fit for me. And also, like, I'm not going to cut my hair, so that's another problem.
Yeah. And I think you're probably more of an impact-driven person, right? You'd rather be the decoy and help develop hundreds and thousands of dogs as opposed to run one dog on the street, get a dozen bites, and then retire with some cool stories, kind of thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And that was that. I interviewed Mike Ritland like a year ago, less than a year ago, and he said something similar. He was looking at going to the dogs and the seals, but he could have more impact doing the team dog stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and sort of the same with my story as well, right? I could have probably tried to stay in the military, but I decided this was better for me and for the community. So, yeah, I like
Yeah.
that mindset, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I think. It's leaving a bigger impact. Well, speaking of dogs, what is she? My dog just ran in. I think leaving like a bigger impact and bigger footprint. Um, uh, is definitely happening this way versus, being a dog handler for me. I think that there are absolutely guys that leave massive impacts by being dog handlers, and by no means am I downplaying what they're doing for the industry or for the community within itself. But for me, probably for guys like you, there's different ways, different avenues that we have to take to leave that impact, I think.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, man. Yeah. So at what point, so you're working with the cops, you've like pestered them for the decoy work, catching dogs, you've sold a dog as well. When did you get into like professionally selling your services as a decoy to cops and to anyone else?
To be honest with you, I wish that I knew like a date that it happened. I don't even know exactly how it happened. I know that I would show up. So like part of the transit eventually, um, for me and my wife got married and we had our first daughter, and we decided, she reminds me every day that we decided to move, or I convinced her to move back up to Canada from Florida. So we moved back up to Canada, and at that point we're like, I was like committed into, I'm going to do this. I don't know exactly how, but we're going to start this company. So we started the company. The end goal. So we also do pet dogs. We train pet dogs. But my true passion at the time was I want to raise and sell police dogs. Um, I got my toes wet a little bit. It wasn't just direct, like when I was in Florida, it wasn't directly my sale. It was like through a vendor. So I still felt a little bit removed from it. But I was like, hey, I want to be that vendor, and sell these dogs directly and raise them up myself. So we came here and we imported a dog, a German Shepherd actually, and I was raising him up and we're training him, and um, no one, and I get it because like a lot of times the canine world is very guarded, like the professional canine world, they're guarded. So so I was, the what's worked for me in my life before and other places was I annoy people enough, until they finally maybe open a door or just crack the door a little bit and then I kick it in. So I was looking up, trying to get contact information for anyone in the local area, or not even just local, like in Canada, pretty much, uh, that was in charge of a police canine unit. So I prepared the dog where I thought that the dog was at the level that he was ready. And I'm just working and working and sending emails, and none of them are getting answered. And finally, someone answers. A pretty big agency out here answered, and they were like, "Okay, bring your dog out. We're in the market for some dogs. Bring them out, and we'll test them." And then that's like the moment of realization is where I was just like, "Oh man, well, I hope this dog is ready." Like, I think it's one of those those things where you have like limited time to have influence, or it's like that first impression type. So I was like, okay, we end up, long story long, we end up going out. They schedule a day, and it was supposed to be one agency, but a few of the other agencies that I annoyed with my emails also showed up. And I was like, okay, now this is even more intimidating because now there's like four agencies here. And I could see, and I don't fault the guys at all, but I could see that they're just like, well, let's see. I get it. I get calls all the time. Well, I got a police dog, a dog that'll be good. So we brought the dog through, and the dog, probably during that testing, it was one of the probably hardest testings that I've seen overall. Just duration of the testing. It was a long testing, and it was back to back different profiles, and the dog just knocked it out of the park. And I was impressed with how well the dog did. I was like, whoa, well, that was close. And then from that point on, just building relationships off of there, getting invited out, doing training days with different units, you know, to the area. It kind of just grew into, um, someone on the West Coast asking to book a seminar with me, and like, how much would it cost? And I'm like laughing, like, well, I'll do it for free in my mind, So I've told them like a ridiculously small number. They booked it, and I went out there and did the seminar. And then it feels like since that day, it's kind of just been rolling. I've been, you know, there's people in the industry that like from a distance, always been like, man, I really like this guy or I really like this girl and how they train, and just being able to meet up with those people and then somehow like forge these relationships that have grown. And Justin, you know who Justin Rigney is? You heard of?
Yeah, I've heard the name. I've never come across the guy though.
Okay, so he's another guy that was, to me, he's like one of the titans in the industry, and he received me with open arms. When I was like really brand new to like teaching and instructing, and like, oh, Mike, come here with me, and I'll help you walk you through this process, or give it little bits of advice here and there that meant a ton to me, because I was like, well, like Justin, like you want to even hear what I have to say? Like what kind of you know is this a dream? Like anyone's listening to what I'm saying? So that, yeah, it kind of just grew from there, and then just booked seminars. I'm also a part of the organization called Canines United, which is a not-for-profit that does seminars as one of the things they do. They provide equipment and even dogs to agencies throughout America. And with Canines United, we do 4 seminars a year. We just finished one in Florida last week, and there were 75 dog teams at it. And
Shit.
me and Carlos will work every single dog there. So dehydration is real, but and so we basically it got down to the point of like I think just every opportunity we have to get in the suit and work dogs or help canine teams, we've done it, and it just kind of keeps going, at least for right now.
Yeah, no, it's cool as fuck, man. You've really fucking carved out a name for yourself, bro. So, but you're right. It happens incrementally, right? It is no, you're not like, all right, today's the day, and
Yeah.
before you know
Yeah,
it,
it's not like I made or I don't think anyone makes like the conscious decision of, okay, well, now today I'm gonna start doing seminars or training. Like it just kind of organically happens, and kind of that's how it moved for me, at least.
yeah. So, I wanted to kind of round off the police specific questions. So, um, man, it seems like every other day I look on Instagram and there's been a US cop killed, K9 killed, injuries, all that type of heinous stuff. Um, how often do you come across that in your dealings with law enforcement agencies? Like you develop a relationship with somebody or a dog, and then you find out they've been killed or they've been seriously injured, things like that. How do you sort of like not reconcile, but like, what's your take on that? How's that affected you?
It's big, man. Like for so that again, particularly when we do these big seminars, there's 75 dog teams there. So out of the 75 dog teams that were just at the seminar last week, what Canines United does is they get a portrait made for every canine that was killed in action in America. So at the seminar that we were at with the 75 dog teams, there were 2 canines that were killed in action. And it's to be honest with you, I don't have you been to like any of these like canine funerals or where they have everyone out? Man, there's like it just hits, very different. Um, and the only thing at this point that I know how to do is to try um, through my skill sets um, to make it more likely for dogs and handlers and cover officers to make it home. That's I tell them all like, hey, I've never been a cop. I'm not a tactical Tina. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So don't ask me questions on that, because if you're asking me questions on that, then you're in a very bad place. Like you got to figure out all the cop stuff outside of me. But if you want your dog to go down this hallway and lay down or let you know if anyone's in these rooms, I'll help you with that stuff. But I'm not going to help you with the particular tactics. So yeah, well, all I try and do is just focus in on the dogs, focus in on the handlers, effective communication with the dog, whether it be in bite work or whatever profile they're dealing with, because I think that pays dividends in the future. I think it's prevention is to me obviously the best way to deal with um, these situations, but prevention also sucks because it's not like a measurable stat. You can't say, oh well, my training or training that I was a part of helped prevent this from occurring, because you can never do that. You don't know what that is. There's not a check mark beside it. So I
Yeah,
definitely take solace in that. Giving everything that we have. Um, we make a pact when we go out and do these training days, is that we're never going to be the ones that uh, call it a night or call it the day is done. Um, we let the handlers say that the day is done. If we're beat up and bleeding, that's just a part of it. We'll let them say when they're over, because I don't want to be the one that's called the day is done and we didn't get to do something that they wanted to work on. Um, I think the other side to that coin, and sometimes it leads to like not like hard conversations, is like there's also some dogs that are and handlers that are in the roles that it's probably not the best job for them, and when we see that, um, or when I see that, it helps me sleep at night, um, to know like, hey, I communicated how I felt about this dog, and what the outcomes are, how they decide to move forward with the dog is outside of my control. I'll help in any way that I can help. But if I see a dog that just doesn't have it, and they don't want to do this, this part of the job, um, I feel it's my responsibility and my duty to communicate that to the handler. Does that make sense?
yeah, mate, 100%. Yeah, yeah. Like one thing that struck me every time I've been to the States, particularly working with law enforcement guys, is how seriously they take their job. And that might sound like a flippant thing to say because you'd imagine every law enforcement officer would take their job seriously. But like at that conference the other day, it was like we're up early, guys are working late, running training, doing extra stuff outside what the conference offered. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, it was no joke, man, because their fucking lives are on the line, and that was like
Hmm.
you saying that impresses me as much as them taking their job seriously impresses me, because at the end of the day, it's not a
Hmm.
fucking sport, right?
Yeah.
It's do or die, love or death.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And like I know your skill set as well is pretty broad, right? So you're not like, yes, you're the decoy guy, but you're not just the decoy guy. You do like puppy selection, you do the development work, you do probably I think you do some detection work as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We kind of do it all. I definitely, I've had a calling towards the decoy work for sure. That speaks volumes, just to me. But overall, overall, like, to me, behavior is behavior. Whether we're doing detection work or you're doing bite work or you're doing obedience or you're doing tracking, behavior is behavior. So just figuring out the most effective ways, or effective and efficient ways of communicating to that animal what your expectations are of the behaviors, is what it comes down to. So I think it's just dog training. In total, so I have fun with that part of it. I have fun with saying, hey, like, maybe we can try and do it this way with this dog, because they define, what thing the dog defines what they like and what things they want to avoid. So figuring out what that is for each individual dog, and in each individual profile, is to me like super fun and super rewarding for myself.
Yeah. Could you just and because I want to get onto the protection dog stuff in a second, can you just talk me through like your sort of I don't know, not like method, but like your philosophy on training, like the way you sort of structure your training? Because I'm going to get into some listener questions in a second. Um, but yeah, what's kind of like your progression, the structure, so to speak, of the way you train?
um that's a hard question,
It's a broad
but
question, I know.
yeah, I think, I would say the structure, if I have to like kind of sum up the structure of the training, would be one, letting the animal know that my target, whatever my behaviors are that I want for that dog to do, um, sorry, making them figure out that doing those behaviors is what works to their advantage in life. So If it's in bite work, when you give me whatever my criteria is for the behavior, it's going to be advantageous to you as a predator. When if we're doing tracking, hey, following this track that we've laid is going to work to your advantage as a predator. Obedience, same thing. I want them to, hey, a down, when it's their idea, it's the best idea. So, and figuring out whatever that dog, they all want to work to their advantage. They want to get the upper hand from things. So figuring out what that specifically is for each individual dog, to me, is the bread and butter. I think if we understand like behavioral frameworks and our learning theories, also the dog's desires, um, it gives us the ability to kind of operate within a system that's not super rigid, um, because it can be adjusted on a dog by dog basis, but it all makes sense within the framework. If that is that making sense?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, man. I think, yeah, for lack of a better explanation, you're probably more of like a principle-based trainer. You're like, these are the pillars of the way I train my dog, and as long as we've got the foundation, like the specifics are kind of secondary. Like the method is secondary to the outcome.
Absolutely, absolutely, and prioritizing, right? Like a dog's what my expectations and priorities for my dog may be vastly different than what your expectations and your priorities for your dog are. So there may be things with my dog. So I'll give you an example. Like I call it selective disobedience. But let's say hypothetically, if you're pushing up to a building and a door threshold, and you send your dog up there and you put them in a down at the door threshold, expectations generally are that my dog respects my that down that I gave him, that command that I gave him. But if that door threshold has maybe a suspect on the other side of the door threshold, I would also be okay with my dog being a little selectively disobedience. Maybe not breaking the down and just going in, but giving me some type of change of behavior or something that looks very hey, that is not your regular down. That's something that I'm okay with you getting away with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely, man. Like trust your dog, right? Let your dog's intuition. You got to be able to read your dog. The dog knows. Like we don't teach a dog how to smell. We just teach them what to smell. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, trusting your dog's intuition.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's the way to go, and not being so like there's times and places for like very um, rigid expectations of my obedience behaviors, but then there are also times and places where I think having a little bit being a little loose on the reins, also can be beneficial. So it's like my selective disobedience, or if I tell you to heel, but there's explosives 10 feet away from me. Hey, cool. Let me know that the explosives are there. Uh,
Yeah, because I've made those mistakes in the past, right? I developed a few dogs it's like a few years ago, and I had that classic second dog syndrome. Like the first one I developed, Django was like awesome, responded to everything that I did. We were just so in tune. Second dog, I tried to like put him in the same box, and it just didn't work out that way. And I think I cooked him a little bit, and he ended
mhm.
up not working out. But
Yeah, that comes
yeah,
with the
I
territory,
think
man.
yeah, yeah, and that was my realization moment. I was like, oh man, I've just got to think of like what are the principles that I want to use to train this dog, not like okay, step one, we'll do this, step two, we'll do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if it was that rigid and that easy, then there would be no need for guys like ourselves, right? If we could just print out hey, these are the steps, do this, and it's done. But yeah, it's like that the age old saying, dog training is a science and an art. It's a blend of the both of those things.
Yeah. So what about Nepo Po? Have you ever had a lot of exposure to like specific systems, or you'll sort of take what you need from those kind of systems?
Yeah, so Justin Rigney is really big into that system. Um, so I've definitely I tell everyone like, hey, none of my ideas are original. But I've stolen them from everywhere and built upon those. So I've definitely taken things from him. adjusted them accordingly to a dog by dog basis. But that it's kind of one of my things of saying, hey, you can be when I was talking about earlier, like there are schools of thought that sometimes almost become like tribal, and people that maybe,
Yeah.
or like some people really like it's Ivan Balabanov. And it's like, hey,
Yeah.
Ivan is a great trainer and has some amazing ideas, but it doesn't mean like you don't need to. I don't agree with everything my mother says, if that makes sense. So like, I can take pieces of what Ivan does, and take pieces of the system Justin's using, or take the pieces from here and put things together that make maybe the other pieces are really effective, but they just don't make sense in my mind and how I'll be able to put them forward. But these pieces make sense to me. So, and kind of forging them together in a way like that, I think is, um, you know, for me, I think has been the most effective way.
Yeah, I like that, man. And so in in that same by that same token, do you ever like lock heads with anyone in the community? Like I'm sure like Jerry Bradshaw and Cameron Ford sort of have a different philosophy on certain things, and I wouldn't call it a rivalry, but like, do you have like a nemesis, so to speak, in that world, but like in a friendly kind of relationship?
It's a great question, man. I'm trying to think of who. Like, there's definitely like I wouldn't even say nemesis, but there's every single trainer that I train with, that I have very close relationships with. There are things that we see very differently. There's more that we see alike and that we agree on, but there are absolutely things that we disagree on. I'll give you an example. So, Carlos, when he is using his clicker in obedience, he's a big fan of like multiple clicks.
I
So
knew you
if
were
the
going to say
dog
that.
the dog sits, he like click click clicks, and it works. Like I'm by no means am I saying it doesn't work. I know that it works. Justin Rigney does that. A lot of people do that system. Um, but I totally disagree with it. Like I think that we should do one click, and we'll just butt heads over it, and I'll make fun of him for doing it. He'll make fun of me, and oh, you think the dogs count the clicks, and like we all of that stuff. So, but like, and there's way more things like that, but there's a lot of like that back and forth. I don't think that there's not one particular person that I was like, oh, you're my nemesis. But
Yeah.
kind of kind of everyone I'd disagree with on certain things. And the other thing that makes it hard, I think, for me is that I'm not married to any of the ideas. So if information comes along, and I hope that information comes along, and I've said this before, but I hope that 5 years from now I look back at how I'm training right now and be like, what was I thinking? Like, why did I think that was you know the the best way of doing that, or the most efficient way of doing that? I want to be able to change, so I always kind of keep that, hey, that seems like a really good idea. What I'm doing, what you're doing is better than what I'm doing, or the way that I'm doing it. I'm definitely going to do that. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to erase all memory of what I did, because there may be a dog in the future that this isn't going to work with, and what I was doing before would work with. But just not being like married to any of it. Like I used to do, when I was doing hard surface tracking, I used to do like the hydro tracks with water
The
on it.
water, yeah.
Um, I stopped doing that and went to more of a Dick stall method, because I was like, hey, this is a little bit more effective, for what my expectations are. And then, I went away from that and started doing a different method that kind of adopts, parts of what Dick stall does, but puts it in a more unique way. My buddy Mike Lilly has a tracking system that I'm so far right now, to me, is hands down the best system available. So, but just like that, hopefully, some years pass and Mike makes his system even better, or something else comes along that is also very. Now, I still know how to do the hydro tracking. I still know how to do Dick Stahl's tracking methods, but going here. Oh, are you there?
I can still hear you, bro. Yeah, it just went a
Okay.
little bit roboty, but I heard most of everything you said, man. It's all good.
All right.
Yeah. So what? So you've obviously been out to Australia. You said you came to Australia a couple of years. Talk us through that. Who'd you work with? What'd you like? What'd you not like? Would you come back?
Yeah, I absolutely would come back. I loved it when I was there. My one stipulation for me coming back is I got to make sure I have like an extra couple of days to do stuff outside of dogs. Go and sightsee, do a little bit of the tourist stuff. But yeah, I think the people were super friendly. Everyone was really accommodating, and helpful. And then the dogs, man, the dogs were. I was very impressed with the performance and what I saw of the dogs. It's always cool, and I always, like I said, I take ideas from everywhere, man. So like being able to see a little bit of what the operating environment for police in Australia was like compared to some of the stuff that I'm more familiar with on this side of the world was really cool. Just seeing differences in what they would do, how they would utilize the dogs. Yeah, well, I got to work with some corrections guys, uh, another group of guys from the military. Um, who else? And then quite a few just different police agencies out that way.
Yeah, nice, dude. Yeah, because I know a bunch of guys that I'm close with are big fans of yours, and we're all sort of like talking about getting you and a couple other guys over here at some point. It's just a matter of getting our ass in the gear and sorting it out. But yeah, all right, mate. Uh, I'm going to hit up the listener questions in a second, but I just want you to really
Okay.
just talk me through Grassroots K9, and like the services you offer, particularly the protection dog stuff, because that interests me a lot because we don't really have that here. There's some people
Mhm.
that do it, but it's not as big as in the States.
Yeah. So Grassroots K9, what the company is what a few things. We do pet dog training, as well as we have a puppy police and military dog program. So our breeding program, we raise puppies up from day one until they're ready to go. Um, we also do protection dogs, not as frequently as some of the other places that do protection dogs. I think there's the good and the bad that comes with that. There's definitely a big demand out here. I would say in North America for protection dogs. Just different side of the world, different goals, I guess. But then we do have a PSA club as well here. My daughter is really into PSA. She'll let you know she's the youngest handler to get a PDC on a dog, as well as the youngest handler to get her first leg of her PSA one. Um, but
Nice.
yeah, so she'll let you know all about it. So for as far as protection dogs go, when we do them, we have a pretty in-depth questionnaire that we send out. We don't usually have the dogs sitting here ready to go as protection dogs. What we do is either usually it means we get in our questionnaire we kind of say, hey, what are your priorities with the dog? What is the threat level? What are your potential vulnerable areas? Why do you want a protection dog? Who's in your household? How many people are going to be interacting with the dog on a daily basis? Like all kind of like information that's going to help us determine. And then obviously, like, hey, what are the expectations? For me, protection dogs are hard because when one person says protection dogs, it can mean something very different than what the next person says. Like, there's not a standardized protection dog. So really getting at what they mean by that, um, as well as like lifestyle, yeah, and what like the lifestyle that not just that they live, but that they're going to also be able to provide to the dog. So we've turned down quite a few of kind of applications and questionnaires and just sent the business on elsewhere just because it wasn't the right fit or it didn't, maybe the expectations they had of the animal, um, in my opinion, weren't going to be fair to what the dog's capabilities would be. Like uh, it's really hard um, for a dog. I say like for the past at least 30,000 years, we've been domesticating animals. We've been domesticating dogs, sorry. And we've only selectively bred for dogs that don't bite us. Like we don't want the ones that bite us. Um, so then we now in this reverse thing, we're saying, okay, now we need like a 1%er dog that will actually bite someone if the time arises in the protection field. But I also want them to, for probably 99.9% of their life, to never bite anyone. Like
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times those expectations are hard, it's like, hey, you don't have any real world quote unquote experience, and then the time that it really matters is the only chance that you have at doing the right thing. That's a high stakes game, and so a lot of times I kind of push people away from that. There are ones that we have sold that I know will fit the bill. But a lot of people say protection dog, and they want a very obedient dog that will be a deterrent when they ask it to be a deterrent. Bark at someone, or we'll leave you outside of the your crate at night, and you get to have free roam at the house. If someone comes to the back door, make a big show, and at least let us know they're here. The other thing that I try to make sure that people understand is like a protection dog um, isn't the line of defense, but it's a line of defense. Like you need to have other security things, measures in place. Do you have a camera system? Do you have security? If you're actually under a pretty big threat, is a dog might not be the right answer for you, right? So we also refer them off to I have a friend that has a very successful security and kind of executive protection company. So I let them kind of handle like the threat assessment portion of it. And then if a dog fits the bill and everything is right, then we'll help them with that process. But if not, we'll just let the security professionals take over with that. Does
Yeah.
that kind of answer your
Have you?
question?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, man, definitely.
Awesome.
Because I imagine you got to weed out all the fuckwits, right? Like, I want a cool dog that'll just bite someone on command, and they go and bite the local drug dealer or something just because they can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, you
yeah,
never know. So and usually I make like the front end work on their part be quite tedious. So like fill out this questionnaire. When you fill out this questionnaire, go on and we'll schedule in a meet and greet with you and the family. And like usually that filters out a lot of that stuff, right? Because it's already just too much work for them to do. So if someone's going through all of these steps uh to get information, then they're a little bit more serious about what's going on. So that also has helped.
yeah. Have you ever had any or heard of any incidents where the dog's done its job and protected a family or a family member?
Yeah, yeah, we have a couple of dogs actually. We had one guy that had a check cashing store that people were attempting to rob, and the dog stopped the robbery. It didn't bite anyone, but it put on a big show,
Yeah, good.
and they decided to take the robbery somewhere else. And then we have other ones that are a little bit more personal, but probably not too good to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Yeah, fair enough. I'm sure there's a lot of confidentiality stuff too. What's the threat and the protection ID, that stuff. Yeah, righty, man.
Mhm.
Um, Dude, if you're cool, man, I've got four questions here from people that commented on the post. If we just go through those now, if you're cool with that, man.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, like, giving training advice on a podcast can be difficult, giving the minutiae of the thing,
Yeah,
but we'll
I'll
see,
try
we'll
my
see
best.
how we
I'll,
go.
I'll try my best.
Yeah, so mate, this is from K9 Gunter. I got two questions from him. Um, I know the guy's name, but I'm not sure if I will say it on a podcast because he's a cop. Um, so, what's the best use of an 8-hour patrol day per month? Like, what's the best optimization of training in that time?
Yeah, really, super good question, because I think efficiency is the name of the game. A lot of times, canine training days, those once a month canine training days, can become like a social club sometimes, and guys just get out, we do a couple reps with our dogs, and it's twiddling thumbs, and then what are we going to eat for lunch? And I tell my guys here, you want to train with a purpose. So two things on what I would address. The first thing would be, hey, did you guys have any operational fails this month? If you had operational fails, I would get the guys to scale those operational fails down to smaller levels, so little like piece by piece, and run through and figure out where the problem is, and try to solve it. Don't just run the full failure that you've had, but run it down into little pieces, and work your way through that with the unit as a whole. If there were no operational failures, I know that that's hard to believe. But if there were no operational failures, I would say, what is your, like, what's your bread and butter in your area? Like, in that theater that you're in, is tracking what matters? Is your ability to do a building search, is that what matters the most? Is your detection what you're utilized the most for in that area? If it is detection, what are your target odors? What if it's narcotics? What are the popular narcotics in that area? And really focusing in on what's going to be effective, um, for what is your bread and butter, what you're doing, most of your calls are based off of. I say would pay leaps and bounds. And then just being efficient with your time, and don't use it as just social club. Get in, be intentional about the reps that you have with your dogs. The other thing that I despise about training days sometimes is like when it becomes, well, it's not my dog's turn, so you go do your dog, and we're gonna all hang out back here while we just talk and mess around. Like, no, everyone be at, like, supervise each rep, because you're gonna learn something from what that guy did with his dog that's gonna be beneficial for you and your dog. So like actively being a participant, I think we'll get 8 hours is it's not a long time for a month, but there's a lot of stuff you can get done in 8 hours.
Yeah. And I'm not overly familiar with some of this terminology, like an 8 hour patrol day. Is the patrol day like a training day? Is that what that means?
Yeah, it's probably he's probably saying he has one day a month, for 8 hours that they're going to do a training day.
Yeah, gotcha.
Would be my
Okay.
assumption from it.
Yeah. I don't know why he's asking that question. I saw him at the conference and he was like just training, 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 doing stuff.
Yeah,
And
maybe he wants to show it to the other guys in his unit.
I think so. um, and so another question from him as well, and this is one that I was going to ask too. Like, what's kind of like the ideal mix, like muzzle suit, like a hidden prosthetics, civil, like where do you find like an optimal mix like that for a police dog?
Yeah, I think that I look at, so I actually used to be pretty opposed to like muzzle bite work sessions, um, because I think a lot of times for a lot of dogs, the muzzle is just conditioned as a fighting tool, like oh, we're gonna go do that muzzle fighting stuff. If that makes any sense. I think there's a guy up here named Drew Dubnik. He's the one that changed my mind on the effectiveness of muzzling. But I think if you're using a muzzle, in short terms, if you're going to use a muzzle to do like your bite work or building searches, and they find someone, that needs to be 2% of the time that your dog is wearing a muzzle. They need to wear a muzzle 98% of the time, not doing any bite work. Because if the muzzle going on your dog is a signal for muzzle fighting, you might as well have a suited decoy standing there anyway, because it's just a conditioned response. There was a video that was going around online years ago, and this dog was muzzle fighting with a guy, and it looked very impressive. Like the dog is punching him, and it's staying there, and everything looks good. And the decoy messes up, and the muzzle wasn't on the dog right, and it slides off the dog's face. And as soon as it slid off the dog's face, the dog went into a down, because it's been conditioned to put on, like, trained to look like you're fighting someone with a muzzle on, but not actually. It's not about what it looks like, but it's about what the intent behind the animal is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, big time, man.
So that's what I would say as far as muzzles go. Prosthetics, kind of the same thing. To me, it's not so much about the actual equipment, but how you're using the equipment. So I don't. I think prosthetics are a part of the picture of proofing the dogs off the big puffy suits and pictures, but I think that there's also some very sporty dogs that would never actually bite someone for real, that I could condition to bite a prosthetic limb and look really good doing it. So I don't think, again, it's just about them biting the prosthetic, but what is the the entire picture of them getting to the prosthetic. I think using the prosthetic as like a calibration, maybe for a dog that hasn't um, had a live deployment yet, could be very useful. But I don't, let's say I want it, if we're using a prosthetic, I want it passive and I don't want it to be presented. So we have to put the decoy in a place where they're not going to be vulnerable to actually getting bit somewhere else. And I want to walk the dog up. The decoy is not helping or being active, a passive bite. If the dog doesn't bite, he just lost his opportunity at biting. I get my decoy to get up and run away excited and put the dog away. Then I wouldn't go back to prosthetic work for a while because I don't want to condition him to biting a prosthetic. I want to use the prosthetic as a calibration. Hey, are we there yet? Are we where we need to be? Is he going to take this sight picture in? How's that mouth feel for him? I mean, if he's not, that's okay. We put him away. We work on our other things that are going to get us hopefully ready to bite again. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does, man. Yeah, yeah.
So there's again, like there's a guy named Drew Dubnik that does a amazing. It's called Closing the Gap. He does a course from like the last day of K9 course, your K9 course, to the first live, your first deployment. And bro, it was like eye opening for me, the course that he did. So, but yeah, those are things that I've taken from him, and I'm piggyback into what or put into systems that we're using. Yeah, I don't want to just condition them to look good, but it's like you see some people um, do like muzzle, like when they're trying to condition a dog to muzzle fight, they have a suit on, and the dog has a muzzle on, and the dog's like fighting them while they have the suit on. What, depending on what your application is, if you're just going to try and use it for sport stuff, then it doesn't matter that much. But if it's actually about target acquisition and the dog, we don't want to condition him to muzzle fighting. We want him to want to have that target acquisition. So again, and then it has to be 2% of the time. Otherwise, we'll very quickly lose. The muzzle will just be a signal, and you might as well just have the suit on anyway.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, because my take
Oh,
on the muzzle was always that it's a good way to show the dog different pictures in a
mhm,
safe way, I guess. Like,
mhm.
partly civil, partly, passive, or whatever the case is. So interesting,
Mhm.
man. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think it does play that role. It just needs to be conditioned properly. The dog needs to be neutral to it, and then it absolutely will do those things.
yeah, yeah. Because I saw Gary doing Gary Hicks from Weather Sandler. He did a post a little while ago about the same thing. Um,
Mhm.
is that are you and Carlos on the same page when it comes to that?
Yes, or similar pages. Yes, we're pretty close on that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, I was just wondering if maybe he'd been speaking to Carlos at the conference, and that was a flow on from there. So interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Mate, this is a question from Black Dog 81 DAWG. Um, is it worth transitioning a patrol dog from push to pull on the bite? And then how would you do that?
Transition it so they push and you want to make them pull is what the question
No, no.
was.
So the dog is pulling, and he's wondering if
Okay.
it's worth transitioning to a push.
Uh, that's a conversation that will probably spark some arguments online for sure. But at least it's a podcast and it's just us two here. Um, so I
Exactly.
think that I think that the answer to that, it could be like multifaceted, in that first and foremost we have to try and figure out why the dog is pulling, right? Because there's different reasons for them to be pulling on the bite. Sometimes pulling on the bite could be because maybe of some nervous tendencies, but a lot of times they pull on a bite because genetically that's the style of biting that has been bred into them, right? And and it's also can be very effective for them. So I tell our even we're working new decoys that you get a big 100-pound German Shepherd on you and he's biting you on your tricep, and he punches in once and you say ow, and then he pulls and you try not to reinforce him, but you pretty much almost fall over. Like it's kind of his style of fighting, and I equate it to like, hey, if you take a someone that's a fourth generation sumo wrestler from Japan, that's really effective and really just ingrained into the sumo system. And then you bring them to Muay Thai and you teach them, or so you bring them to Thailand and start teaching them some Muay Thai. Yeah, they'll probably pick up some of the skills and some of the striking. But as soon as things like that sumo wrestler gets pushed in Muay Thai out of his comfort zone, he's probably going to default back to sumo wrestling, because it works for him. Like that's his style of fighting. That's what he knows. So I look at a lot of dogs in that same manner. We could teach them how to do it, and they'll probably and you should. It would be effective for him. Uh, but when push comes to shove, if that's genetically how he bites, he's going to default back to that when things get a little bit stressful. In my experience.
Yeah. So you reckon probably if that's kind of the way he does it, there's almost no point bothering to transition to a push bite.
Yeah, I think that there's still probably a point to do it, because then I look at like if someone's wearing a ton of clothing and they get satiated by just pulling on that clothing, like I want him to know that you can punch in and counter, but we may not be able to get him to commit to just continuing to punch in and counter. I think a lot of times those, like if you want that style of biting, there's elements of it that are training, but there's also like really big elements of that are selection. Like you can also select for the like the bite mechanics that you're looking for.
Yeah. Okay. Because one thing I did see them doing, the cops in the States, is like long line deployments and then like pulling a dude back to say like a cordon or a cover officer or whatever. Is that a
Hmm.
factor in there, or is that like it doesn't matter if it's pushing or pulling, you just drag the dog and it just the dude's gonna come
Yeah,
with him?
well, I actually prefer the punching style for that, because if we think about it, when you have them on a long line and you're moving someone, like I said, if they're moving them and they're pulling and it pulls down to clothing or whatever they have, or the grip is starting to get shallower, and then you can release back pressure, the dog can get a full grip again, and then we can pull, release back pressure, they can get a full grip again, to make sure that they're maintaining on that same spot. So that's what I was saying. Like for those moments, I think it's really, whether he pushes or pulls on a bite, he should know that he has the ability to punch on a bite. Maybe he's not going to lock into it and just stay there naturally, but I think it's definitely something that would be worth exposing him to and teaching him that.
Yeah. I like that answer, man. I didn't really think about it that way. Dude, last question. How do you select and train puppies? And that's from Sone, Sone 26.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's kind of a funny situation. So I am notoriously, I don't have really good luck with selecting puppies. So we breed puppies here. I think like, oh, bro, this one right here, it's been consistent from, this time to this time, or this has been the best one so far. I love this puppy. Every time I say that about a puppy, it turns out to be the worst puppy that that we've had. So I don't necessarily have a really effective system. I wish that I did. It would make things easier. But what's unique about us is that I keep all of the puppies and raise them up. So like I don't have to be able to select a puppy out of the litter, because we just keep them all. So if we were relying on me selecting a puppy out of the litter, things would not be going so well for us right now, because I would have the ones that have washed. But overall, what I look for in general, I look for the same expressions that I would look for in an older dog, but just be fair that it's a young puppy. So the first and foremost, most important thing to me is environmental stability and confidence. I want them to walk into places they've never been, like they've been there 100 times, like it's their house. I want scorpion tails when they walk into rooms. I also want them to do this by themselves, like not with the rest of their litter. I want them to, I try and expose them to slippery surfaces, things of that nature, and do it with them not in drive, so not chasing a flirt pole or a toy through the building. I'm just out of drive. Hey, come here. You're here with me. So that's my first, and to me the most important thing, because you can have all the go in the world, but if you're scared to go in a dark room, it's gonna be a hard career ahead of you. So I want them to really feel. That's what I look for first. Then the ones that don't do well with that, I would knock them off of my selection. Um, then I would go from that to try and test for commitment to hunt. With really young puppies, or even 8-week-old puppies, can be a little bit harder because I don't use a toy for the hunt, just because some of them don't even know what the toy is. So I'll put food out in like a field with really long grass, maybe bring them over to where the food is, and then pick them up and walk them away and see if they'll continue to go hunt for that food that they've had. I'll do the same thing inside. Um, the ones that show really good commitment and duration to the hunt. So it's not even so much about them finding it, but how long they're willing to commit to continue searching. Then I'll go and do like a little bit of bite where I want to see, probably even flirt pole stuff, just a rag. I want to see the dog show really forward, and really forward activation. Them being vocal, barking, um, feeling not hackles up barking or like nervous defensive barking, just prey expressions basically. And then if all that looks good, then I just kind of check what the bite mechanics are, because like I said before, I'm a firm believer in that. Like, a lot of bite mechanics are just a genetic trait. We can do things to enhance them, but then I look for that. So that's kind of the quick rundown of how I look at puppies. But
Yeah.
like I said, I've been wrong plenty of times. So
I think the premise of what you're saying is 100% correct, though. Like, if the genetics and if the nerve and that aren't there, then you can't really train that. You could probably try to develop it or disguise it, but at the end of the day, if it's genetically fucked, not much you
yeah,
can do.
that's what exactly you gotta. That's all the foundation, right? So you build foundation on weakness at that point. Right.
Yeah. Is that why you called the business Grassroots K9? Is it's about like
Yeah.
foundation?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it's we came up with the name because I think guys or anything across the board, it kind of came from what I was doing in basketball, but I think that, like, people that are really good at anything are just really good at foundational things. So we're talking about just from kind of the ground up, and building really solid foundations on the dogs that are in our development program, on the dogs that are in the pet obedient stuff, and even on like the active patrol and military dogs. It all comes back to foundational stuff. Really, like, a really good foundational down is the same thing as like a quote unquote sexy forward down in a hallway. It's just a down. But if we have a really good down, it all of a sudden we can dress it up and make it tactical, or if we have a really good solid foundation of our bite mechanics, those transition into whatever our expectations are. So yeah, that's kind of where the name came from.
Yeah. No, good man. I like that, dude.
Thank you.
Bro, that is the end of the questions, man. Last one I've got for you is, what is the future looking like for you? Do you have like big plans on the horizon, or are you just like consistency, execute, execute?
I think a little bit of both. We're going to continue with what we're doing now. I've actually, this will be the kind of the first time I'm talking about it on a podcast, but we're been working on an online decoy course. It should be finished up within the next probably couple of weeks. We have a few more things that we need to edit, videos that we need to edit down. What's going to be different about this decoy course is it's going to be specifically geared towards um, police foundations. So, there's some decoy stuff online that's like a French ring decoy course, or a PSA decoy course, or what we're going to try and do with ours, or what we have done, is we've built it around developing police dogs, and working with active police dogs. We have tons of videos in there from seminars or agencies that we've worked with, just running through things. So I think it's going to be really cool, man. I'm really happy with it. It's finally like I've been working on it for probably about a year now. So it's all kind of coming together. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to launching that. So that'll be up on our website on grassrootsk9.com. Fingers crossed, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, should be finished.
Yeah. No, good man. That's awesome, dude. And if people want to find you, get in touch, where are they going to find you, bro?
Yeah, so you can find my personal Instagram is letter K number 9 underscore Mike. And we have on Instagram Grassroots K9. Our website is grassrootsk9.com. And if you my personal email is michael@grassrootsk9.com. So yeah, if you have questions or anything comes up or you need clarification on anything that I may have said that may not make sense, yeah, shoot me a message, and I'll be happy to talk with you.
Done. Alrighty, bro.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to let you recharge your social batteries. I'm going to press stop and record, but don't hang up. So thank you for coming on the podcast, man. I really appreciate your time, bro. I had a fucking good chat, actually.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on, man. It was a pleasure.
No worries, dude. All right. See you later, guys.
Thanks for listening to that episode of the Origin K9 podcast. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, subscribe to the YouTube channel, give us a rating on your podcast platform, or go to origink9.com for our tactical canine equipment, which includes collars, leads, harnesses, and merchandise. Thanks for listening, guys.